Looks like we're live with our cameras at this point. I've got 3 o'clock, so I think we'll call the meeting to order. This will be the April 26th meeting of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District. We're obviously here in a new venue, and we're thankful to the City of Champaign and the staff, city manager, and our illustrious city/MTD attorney for giving us the idea for coming over here, and it's greatly appreciated that we can provide some additional light on our meetings to the community through television and through tape recording. Beth, if you'll take a roll, please.
Barron. Hannon. Euchtman. Bauer. Chaplin. Cho. Dial. Quorum is present.
The other item that I'll bring to the board and to our listeners or our watchers in the building, if you've got your cell phone, your electronic devices with you, please silence them or shut them off while we're meeting is in session. So take a moment to do that, and it'd be greatly appreciated. Our first item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda for today's meeting, and before we even talk about that, we need to move on the second page. Item 11 is going to become item 9 because we're going to adjourn immediately after the closed session today. So we need to move the stuff, the items that are described in item 11 above item, so it'll be the new item 9, what is currently item 11. Does that make perfect sense to everybody after I muddied it up? Okay, so I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move that the agenda...
Excuse me, Chairman Dow, we also have item G.
Item G. Oh, item G, which I thought we were going to talk about when we got to it. The other change that needs some additional language for under item 8, letter G, is the setting of the date for the annexation hearing. That's actually you have the annexation resolution in front of you. That's going to be resolution number 2017-3, a resolution setting a public hearing and direction giving notice thereof. That will be replacing line G under item 9, under item 8.
I move that the agenda be approved as amended.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second item is audience participation. Anybody in the audience would like to participate in our meeting today? Be more than happy to give you 5 minutes to talk. Seeing none. Our next item is the approval of minutes. A is the board meeting of March 28th, the open session portion. Everybody have a chance to review those? Any questions on those for staff? Motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the minutes of March 28th, 2017, the open session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed. Motion passed. The second item under number 5 is the closed session minutes for March 28th. Has everybody had a chance to review those? They've been passed around. Okay. Matt's actually walking in. We'll give him just a moment to look at those closed session minutes. Having been reviewed by all the board members, motion to accept the minutes for the closed session.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Number 6 is communications. Carl?
I don't have any.
Any board members have any communications? All right, thank you. Item 7 is reports from the managing director. Carl.
All
right. This is reporting on March statistics, and so let me just start out by saying that the operating revenue and the operating expenses section say February, but the information, the data is for March. My search and replace just didn't work. I'm sure it was user error. So, March ridership was 1.2% below March of 2016, and the year-to-date ridership was 4.45% below 2016. The operating revenue was 2.8% above March of 2016, and the year-to-date operating revenue is 1.9% above March of 2016. Turning the page, the operating expenses are 12.7% above March 2016, and while that seems like a large jump for a single month, that almost entirely is due to just the timing of some early retirement payments, accelerated IMRF payments, and earned time payouts. So you can't always guess when employees are going to be cashing in earned time, and so they just lined up in March, and so we had a jump in March. But you can see that the year-to-date expenses are still only 2.4% above at this point of fiscal year 2016, so we're on track. The year-to-date revenues and expenses, the operating revenues are $405,193 above budget, while the operating expenses are $3,182,331 under budget. And then I have a variety of notes that I will let you read in my report, but I would like to highlight that Andrew Johnson, our new Chief Operating Officer, is here, and so I'm going to invite him up here to the podium so that he can introduce himself to you if you haven't met him already, and just give a quick down and dirty bio on himself.
Thank you, Carl. Yes, my name is Andrew Johnson, and just to let you know, I'm very excited to be part of MTD. I come from Bloomington Normal, where I was the general manager for Connect Transit for about 5.5 years. And we worked in close partnership at times with the district, and also Carl and I worked on other things within our state and national associations. I've been in transit since 1992, starting in Wisconsin. And after a brief sojourn to the private sector for a few years, I came back to transit because it is truly my passion and where I want to be, and have never really looked back. So I live, eat, and breathe public transportation, and I'm very excited to be part of the MTD team.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
We're very excited to have him as well. So. And then finally, on page 10, there's the little note about the route analysis. And since I compiled this report, I just want to point out that we actually heard from IDOT that the grant has been approved. So that didn't make it into this report. So the verbal report is the first chance I'm having to let you know that good news. That has been a long time in the waiting for that. And now we are just in the process of having IDOT approve the specifications to give us pre-bid concurrence, and then we actually have to execute the grant contract. So we'll try to do those two things simultaneously so that we can get that moving forward. That's been languishing for quite a while, but it's great that that grant has been approved. And just as a reminder, that's 80% federal money and 20% state money grant. And then if you have any questions between pages 7 and 48, I would be happy to answer those.
Go ahead, Jim.
Carl, again, I think Matt posed the question last meeting about ridership, continuing to decline. So again, not a great concern?
Correct. From my view, ridership is a organic, kind of breathing type of statistic, and it has rises and it has falls. As you can see, the drop this month is dramatically different from the drop in the previous month, and so even when there's a general slight decrease, the decreases can vary from month to month. So, yeah, it's just something that changes from month to month and year to year. And we are in a season of unusually warm weather and great weather to walk and bicycle in. And as we pointed out in the past, we have a lot of infill development, and so people are positioned to be able to walk and bicycle close to campus. And MCOR has started, so we are seeing significant reroutes on our core services. Our most productive route is the route that's being impacted the most from MCOR, and we knew that going in. And once MCOR is completed, it's going to be great for that route, the green route, that is the most productive route that we have. It'll be a fantastic corridor for it. But it's going to be significantly negatively impacted by MCOR in terms of on-time performance and ridership. As much as we'd like it to not be, I mean, that's just the reality in which we're operating.
The other thing, though, you also followed up, and it struck me, you said it's not a concern, and I mean, and I thought about that, and then I took a look, and this is just more commentary. It's interesting if anybody's looked at that, relative to fare revenues. About 4/6 of our revenue comes from state and government grants, about 1/6 from the property tax, approximately, and about 1/6 from fares. And 95% of fare money is prepaid, isn't that correct?
Correct.
So really, you almost could have nobody riding a bus, because less than 1% is really driven by fares in the box. Is that a fair analysis or not?
Well, that's a dramatic statement, and
But I
I
was
think
just, I mean, you know,
if
I
it
was
were
just looking at-
literal, then that certainly would have an impact on
I mean, I can,
the revenue.
anyway, aside from that, but I mean, really, it's interesting how little of the revenue of the MTD is driven by money in the box.
In the short term, that is true.
Right,
But
I mean,
there
on a
certainly is a
long-term
long
basis,
term.
this
Yes.
would be an issue, but I was just struck when I started looking at that. More of a comment than anything. Thanks.
Any other board questions for Carl?
I just have a comment about the ridership and the ups and downs. One thing at least that I've observed, and I'm a bus rider, and the ridership declines are not caused by poor service. They're caused many times by outside influences, whether it's accomplishing some of our goal of being, having people rely less on car transportation. Some of that's because people are moving closer, which is a goal, and yet it does affect our ridership. And the weather is a cause as well. You know, we're not a commercial transit service. We are a little bit, in some ways, like a service that needs to be there for people. And there's some routes, it's like the people that talk about empty buses. Sometimes that bus needs to be there just because it's providing a service. There may not be anybody there today at the bus stop, but part of our role is to be there when people need us. So, you know, I'm still looking for the long view on ridership. If it continues to decline and decline and decline, I think then that's something for concern. But right now, I think we're still a fantastic service for the community, for the university, and ridership is not a reflection of MTD's management or service.
Matt?
Go ahead.
I guess kind of similar. I'm looking at page 12 or 11 and 12 of the passenger transport, and I read your segment on data. As delivering our data is one of the things that you're focused on at MTD, and I was just wondering if that's something where you can address some of the ridership concerns or commentary, or if there's any kind of strategy that you're looking at for the data delivery is a thread.
Yeah, just from a general perspective, I certainly think that it has an impact, and we saw that when we first introduced the CAD AVL system and we were delivering real-time information to passengers, that at that level, that was that broke through a significant barrier for many members of the community. They either had a fear of using transit, or they just didn't understand it, and being able to have that real-time information in their hands eradicated the fear for them, or at least dramatically reduced it, and it made it clearer and easier to understand for them. So we saw that as a real-world example, and my commentary in that piece is that we're looking to the next step of that, that this providing real-time information has become the standard now, and we were one of the forerunners in that area in the country, and that is a standard. And so now we're looking to see what that next phase is going to be. Haven't identified it yet, but we're looking, and we're trying to work with partners, data providers, to come to that solution. And if I can, I'd like to just one comment about Linda's spot-on remark. I did want to say that ridership will continue to go down as MCOR continues, and as MCOR spreads out throughout the corridors that we are serving. So we have to have a long-term view here, and not a short-term view, and that's one of the reasons why in the operating notes you see a comparison to a 5-year average now, per the recommendation of one of the board members. That gives a broader perspective, because we are going to see decreases. People are going to have a more difficult time getting to the routes that we serve. And so that will have an impact. Some people will choose to walk or ride their bike or find another means of transport, because going 4 blocks out of their way through construction to get to the rerouted bus stop is not something they're going to want to do. So during the time that we're under construction for MCOR, that's going to have an impact. So keep that in mind as we put our eyeballs on the ridership statistics, that we need to have a longer view than just a year or two. Thank you.
Anybody have any more comment on this topic or any other within the bounds of what Carl was looking for in our handouts? I'm going to wrap this up kind of by, I was going to say the same thing that Carl did, that, we're going to be affected by this while the project's in place. And once the project's completed, we're building complete streets here. So people that might not have ridden a bike to work because it was more convenient, or they were uncomfortable riding a bike down Green Street, they're going to have a lot better ability to do that once these streets are done. We're going to have better sidewalks. We're making better facilities for all modes of transportation. So we may even see some effect in ridership based on the project that we're doing when it's completed. So something else to think about. All right, with that, we'll move on to board committees. Administration, is there a report from the administration committee?
No report.
Okay. Facilities committee, anything, Matt? No report. Nothing? No. And service delivery? No report. No report from any committees. We'll move on to our action items. Under 8, our first item A is authorization to establish a checking account for C-Carts and update the signature cards for that account. Carl.
This is a pretty straightforward administrative task. Primarily, it's due to the introduction of Andrew as the chief operating officer, to get him as a signee for the accounts and checks. But then it also creates this account for the C-CART's operations, and it's an administrative task to improve some efficiency in that regard.
Any questions for Carl on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is our Unit 4 contract for service. Carl?
This is a continuation of our fruitful contract with Unit 4. This contract is beneficial for the school district. It saves them a lot of money in the provision of transportation for their middle school and high school students. And the community and the district, the transit district benefit from it because we have a group of middle school and high school students who become travel trained and they become used to using public transportation. And that's a life skill that they can take with them as they move into college and onto the rest of their lives. So everybody wins.
Has everyone had a chance to review the contract? Anybody have any questions on it? Seeing none. Jim?
Quick question, the 388,092, how is that determined? That fee that, you know, and it was, I was curious, what was 2016's fee?
Oh, well, I do not have the 2016 number in front of me, so I'm not going to be able to answer that part of the question off the top of my head. It wasn't dramatically different from this amount, but I don't recall exactly what it was. This number is derived by the amount of hours of service that we put on the street for what we call the school trippers that we do. So they're minor modifications or deviations to our fixed routes in order to pick up or drop off students, but it's our regular route service. It's open to the public, but we do that in order to accommodate picking up the students. And so it's an accumulation of the amount of time that we have scheduled to do that, and then it's multiplied by our fully allocated cost per hour.
And then just reading the information, if the Unit 4 district paid the true cost, or the full cost would be a better term, it would be a little over $1 million, because it says here about 65% is used for grants. Is that correct? So is that number accurate?
Well, they're actually, yes, if they paid the full cost of the service that we provide, yes. If they were to provide the service rather than us, then I think the cost would even be greater than what our full cost would be, because they would have new capital equipment to purchase and a new garage to build to accommodate that new capital equipment and that kind of thing.
Sure,
So there are levels of savings that occur.
Right. And one last question, and I'll stop. So these downstate operating funds are pretty much consistent year to year?
The downstate.
That you use to subsidize the Unit 4 contract?
The Downstate Public Transportation Act has an ongoing appropriation built into the statute that provides our operating appropriation each year. That is why we continue to receive funds even though the state does not have a budget right now, because we have an ongoing appropriation.
Thank you, Carl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, any additional questions? Seeing none, motion to approve this item.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board authorize the chair to execute the agreement. To execute the agreement between the district and Unit 4 in the amount of $388,092. Based on a 9-month school year payment schedule, each billing would be $43,121.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is our Ordinance 2017-1, Ethics and Integrity. Carl?
So this ordinance and the policy associated with it, which is the next item, I'll just explain both of those together. We have a number of ordinances and resolutions that this body has approved in the past to respond to a variety of laws in order to comply with those laws. And so this single ordinance and this single policy is an effort to pull all those together into one coordinated effort while simultaneously responding to the newest law, the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, that requires this type of effort from grantees or units of government that receive any kind of state funding. It's something that the city of Champaign is having to do, the city of Urbana, townships, every unit of government that receives state funding has to comply with this GATA Act, G-A-T-A. So this is our effort to do that.
Any questions on the ordinance before you? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve it.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
Are we going to vote on these two things separately?
Separately.
Separately? Okay. Fred says separately. Okay. So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that the board approve ordinance 2017-1, ethics and integrity. All in favor, say aye.
I need to do a
Opposed?
roll call.
Roll call on this? Roll call.
Barron. Hannan.
Aye.
Uchtman. Bauer.
Aye.
Chaplin. Cho. Dial.
Passes. Our next item is, are you going to talk any more about the policies and procedures in D, or are you done with that totally?
No, same explanation.
I wanted to ask, I didn't see anything in here about regular training of the trustees. I'm assuming we're bound by this same kind of thing, but this, as I see, an annual orientation for employees. Is there some program for trustees as well? We have an open meetings thing that we have to pass, but I didn't remember ever having any ethics type of thing.
Yeah, the Opens Meeting Act is a different thing. That's a great question, and that's actually not addressed in our policy, although Fred and I have had a conversation before. I don't know if you recall it. It's been a while, but we did have a conversation about Fred doing some training at a study session once. So I haven't thought about it since we had that conversation, and it probably would be a good idea to revive that and plan for that.
Good. I think it's a good idea to schedule something to review the requirements of these acts. They're not complicated, but it's good to go over as a refresher. I think June, we have a matter scheduled on a study session for the city council that will review some of the ethical obligations involved in being a council member. It's certainly good practice for boards to do that, public boards in particular. So I'm sure Carl will work to schedule something with the board that we can spend some time going over this.
Happy to.
It's a great question, Margaret. Any other questions on the policy and procedure? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve this.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the addition to the policy and procedure number 12. All in favor? Aye. You want a roll call? No? You want one or not?
Sure, never hurts.
Okay.
Dial.
Yes.
Barron. Hannan. Uchtman. Bauer.
Yes.
Chaplin. Cho.
Motion approved. Our next item is Maintenance Department Fall Protection Contract.
Okay,
Jane.
I'm going to turn these next two items over to Jane Sullivan, our grant manager, Procurement Officer.
Okay, the first item I'm going to discuss is on page 59. This is the Fall Protection System contract. So we opened bids for this project last week. This system provides full body harness for our maintenance technicians that often are doing work on the roof of a bus. For example, our hybrid buses, the batteries are on the roof of the bus. So in order to work on that, they're often on the roof. Thankfully, we've never had a fall or anything bad like that, but this is, with our increase in hybrid buses, we're making sure we have all the safety measures in place. So that's what this system is. We received 3 bids last week. Unfortunately, there aren't any DBE certified companies that do this work, and this is kind of this is a contract where it doesn't allow for any subcontractors. The one company does all the work, orders the materials, installs everything. They must be OSHA certified. So none of the bidders were able to fulfill the DBE requirement. So the low bidder is High Safe Technologies in the amount of $56,307. We did determine that they are responsive and responsible. And so we're requesting approval today to award that contract. Are there any questions?
Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion for approval. Or, Jim, you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Is this an annual, I was trying to visualize what you have here. It's like a harness system? And prior to this point, you did not have this system in place?
That's correct. This is a brand-new system.
Okay, is this going to be a reoccurring expense, or once it's established, it is in place till it, in a sense, becomes obsolete or wears out?
That's correct.
Okay. What caused you all of a sudden, just new buses? I mean, it seems like something that should have been instituted a while back.
I've got an answer for that.
Go ahead.
The answer for that is they have a catwalk system in the building that they've been using previously, but now that there are more hybrid buses and more buses and the orientation of the building's different, they can't get enough equipment in there to use the catwalk system to do all the work that they need to do. So this is going to be in
Harness system
addition
comes in.
to that.
Got it.
Any other questions for Jane on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the fall protection contract. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Fuel management system contract, Jane.
Yes, this second item is a project we've been working on for many years. And as I'm sure everyone knows, all of our buses are fueled on site with with diesel fuel at our fuel island. And our current practice, as it has been for many years, is to track that fuel usage and the mileage with pen and paper. And we've been very anxious to get an automated system to save a lot of time and potential human error. So that's what this contract is. We opened bids last month, and the low bidder did not fulfill the DBE requirement. I'm sorry, they didn't even submit DBE paperwork. So not only did they not achieve the goal, but they didn't provide good faith efforts. The second low bidder, Seneca Companies, in the amount of $111,749, exceeded the DBE requirement and is considered responsive and responsible. So we would like to award this contract to Seneca Companies. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll seek a motion for this item for the fuel management system for 803.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the fuel management system contract.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the fuel system contract in the amount of $111,749. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Jane. Our next item is in front of you. It's resolution number 2017-3, resolution setting a public hearing and direction giving notice thereof, and it appears that Jay will be handling that.
Yeah, so we have this map to show you what dominoes fell into place that led us to this point. Item number 1 on the map is the properties that are owned by Carl Foundation, and they are building their new Carl at the Fields administrative offices out there in phase 1 of their development, and it's a multi-phase development. In your packet, they have, or we've included their annexation petition letter to us. So they are asking to be annexed into the district so that they may receive service out there. And while that will cause us to do some additional planning and a comprehensive look at the area and the service levels that we provide in the Southwest Champaign area, the parcels that are in what is labeled number 2 there, they are not in the district, but they are contiguous to the district. And so in an effort to have comprehensive planning, but also to comply with the annexation agreement that we have with the city of Champaign and the long-range transportation plan that the Champaign-Urbana area transportation study put together, we are including this effort to annex both of these areas in one single resolution. Yeah, the petition doesn't need a public hearing because they're asking, but it just makes sense to tie the two together since they're in the same area, and from a planning perspective, it just makes sense to look at the whole area comprehensively. So the area number 2 is the area that would be discussed in the public hearing, and that is specifically what's addressed in the resolution in front of you.
Linda.
Would there be, I'm thinking there's not, but would there be any property tax revenue from annexing Carl at the Fields, or is it part of the larger not-for-profit group?
Well, it's a complicated question with a complicated answer, and I don't have all the pieces to answer it fully. But the administrative building, the main big building that they're constructing right now, that is taxable. That is a back office administrative function that's not associated with charity care, so it would not be technically caught up in the lawsuit. At least that's my understanding. Fred probably would be better suited to answer this than I would. Some of the other phases of development out there, like their, I'm not a spokesperson for them, so I believe some of the phases will include some medical facilities, and that would not be taxable under under today's situation. But if there's commercial development out there that comes along with the construction of the administrative center and that kind of thing, so just hypothetically, if a gas station were put out there, then that would be taxable and that kind of thing. So there are a lot of different pieces that are variables to that.
Other questions for Carl? Bruce.
This represents an increase in cost to the MTD to service these areas, right?
It would be new service, correct, yes.
Right. And is it usual that we expect the property tax to pay for that, or do we charge the facilities for that as well?
If their
if they become a part of the district, then they are a part of the district's planning effort, and we would look at that as we look at any other part of the district to determine if there are sufficient generators for ridership. And I think that the new administrative center for Carl would be a significant generator, or at least potentially be a significant generator. So that would be certainly
Another source of income.
something that we would look at. Now, we were having conversations with Carl prior to them. It's kind of hard to see on this map on the screen, but that number 1 is made up of several different parcels. And originally, the parcel that is contiguous to the district boundary was not owned by Carl. And so while that was the case, they still wanted, excuse me, they still wanted service. And so we were having a conversation with them about providing service to their facility, but that would be at cost because they would not be participating in the tax base. Instead, they went the route of purchasing that property and became contiguous and eligible for annexation and petitioned for annexation. So that changed the conversation then, if that makes sense.
Additional questions for Carl on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve it. Do you have a question, Margaret?
I'm trying to figure out.
Are you formulating, yep,
2017-3.
we're approving the resolution 2017-3. It's
Right.
been,
So just to clarify, this is not a resolution to annex the property. This is a resolution to set
Yes.
the public hearing date.
so we're going to be voting on resolution number 2017-3, a resolution setting a public hearing and direction giving notice thereof. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
I need a roll call.
Roll call on this?
Farren. Hannan. Uchtman. Bauer.
Yes.
Chaplin. Cho. Dial.
Motion passed. Our next item is resolution for a grant application. Back to Jane.
We are in the process of submitting a grant application. If you've been on the board a few years, you've seen something very similar before. We applied for a similar grant 2 years ago. But this one is for the replacement of 5 of our ADA paratransit vans and 1 supervisor van. So you can see at the bottom of page 69, there are mileage or age requirements for the eligibility of a vehicle for replacement. And you can see that all of these vehicles fulfill the mileage requirement. And it's one or the other that you must fulfill. So this resolution authorizes us to file this application. This grant is fully funded with federal dollars. It passes through the state, but it's fully federally funded, so no local funds. And this gives us the ability to replace these vehicles that are beyond their useful life in terms of mileage. Are there any questions?
So these are replacements, not additions.
That's correct.
Jim?
If we didn't do it this year, would this opportunity be available next year?
Not that I'm aware of. The last time this opportunity was available was 2015, and we utilized that opportunity by replacing some older vehicles with more mileage on them.
So as it says here, if it's now or perhaps never, or you do it
Potentially.
yourself. you
Potentially,
finance it
yes.
with your own money.
Yeah.
Or we keep them for another year and they rack up more and more miles on them that they're already over the mileage rate. Any other questions on this particular item, the grant application? Seeing none, I'll ask for.
Brad, could I just add a little
Yep.
piece of information with these types of vehicles? Just looking at the mileage alone doesn't really tell the story about the condition of the vehicles. These vehicles take a tremendous beating by being on the street. The mileage doesn't reflect the number of hours that the vehicle runs. And it doesn't give you a picture of the stress that the wheelchair lifts apply to the vehicle, and the lifts themselves, the mechanical structure of the lifts, the wear and tear that they take. There is mileage and there's age, and those are the requirements, but then there's reality on top of that, and these vehicles really take a beating just from doing their job. I just want you to know that, too.
Linda?
I imagine there's not much highway miles on these, and these are all in town.
It's all in town, it's a lot of stop and go, unfortunately, a fair amount of idling, as they get out to load and unload passengers, wheelchairs, things like that. So, yeah, it's a pretty rough environment for them.
Any additional questions? Seeing, Margaret?
I was concerned about the amount of maintenance that has to be done on these. Do you have any, I assume it's substantial with all these problems? So we have the mileage, we have the wear and tear on the lifts and the tires and all that kind of stuff. And these are real maintenance problems as well?
Well, the older they are, of course, the more of a maintenance problem they become. We've got a great maintenance department, and they do a great job of staying on top of that kind of thing. These vehicles are still safe, but it becomes more and more costly to keep them that way. I am not going to be able to quote dollar amounts to you as I sit here, but yes, the cost ramp really, or the cost really ramps up as each month goes by.
Margaret?
Can I ask another question? I take it that the ones that are being replaced don't have anything like a trade-in value, or, I mean, there's no way of sort of selling them on, or?
Yeah, we don't trade them in. We do sell them. We participate in a program called, what is it, Jane? Government surplus? Public surplus. It's a website auction site for governmental equipment, and so we put old vehicles up on that. They don't bring in big dollars because they're pretty beat up, but they bring in a surprising amount of money given their condition also.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we need a voice vote on this or roll call?
We'll do a roll call.
Roll call.
Farren? Hannan?
Yay.
Uchtman? Bauer?
Yes.
Chaplin? Cho? Dial.
So our last item for our open session will be the item that we move. So we're going to have a designated stops open house. That'll be May 3rd, May 24th. That'll be from 4 to 6 p.m. at Illinois Terminal. So May 3rd and May 24th, 4 to 6 p.m. At Illinois Terminal. That'll be discussing the designated stops that we will be adding to our service. And the next item is our next regular board meeting will be Wednesday, May 31st at 3 p.m. right here in the Champaign City Council chambers at 102 North Neal. Go ahead, Don.
Mr. Chairman, I move to go into closed session for the following purposes: to consider setting a price for the sale or lease of property owned by the district, and to consider the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the district, and then adjourn immediately after the closed session.
Anybody want to second that motion? It's been moved and seconded to go into closed session. All in favor, we'll do a roll call.
Farren. Hannan.
Yes.
Uchman. Bauer.
Yes.
Chaplin. Cho. Dial.
That's our last item in open session. Thank everybody, all of our staff for being here today, and our one participant in the crowd. Thank you for being here. We're going to clear the room so we can go into closed session. You guys,
There's a separate room that we go into for the closed session. Yeah, that's.